All right, so you want to talk about the future of cities. Well, let's talk about the people who aren't just dreaming about flying cars. They're designing the systems that might actually get us there. The mobility services managers.
You are in the right place for that,
Huh,
because we've got your stack of RoleCatcher guides right here.
you've got that right. Now, I got to admit, this career path is way cooler than I initially thought. We're not just talking about buses and subways here.
No, no.
This is like the whole enchilada of urban transportation,
It
right?
really is about looking at the big picture. These managers are tackling things like um, uh, bike sharing programs, ride-hailing apps, even those parking garages that seem to know exactly where the open spots are.
Speaking of which, one phrase that keeps popping up in these guides is mobility as a service. What does that actually mean, like in practice?
Okay, so imagine this. You're heading to work, but instead of juggling bus schedules and hoping for a parking miracle, you open one app. And I mean one app. It shows you all your options. The bus that's timed perfectly to get you there, a nearby e-scooter you can grab, even a rideshare estimate, all in one place.
Okay, so that's the dream. But how does a mobility services manager actually make that happen? It can't be as easy as just like wishing it into existence, right?
Definitely not. This is where it gets really interesting. These managers are the ones working behind the scenes, building partnerships with public transportation providers, tech companies developing the apps, even city planners. They're connecting the dots to create a seamless experience for the user.
So they're like the conductors of this whole urban mobility orchestra. The guide mentions they're not just stuck behind a desk all day, though. What kind of on-the-ground stuff are they doing?
Well, picture this. You're out at a major transportation hub during rush hour, observing traffic flow, maybe even talking to people about their commutes. The RoleCatcher Guide actually highlights a case study where a mobility services manager in Amsterdam used real-time data to adjust traffic lights during a major festival. The result? They reduced congestion by 15%.
That's wild. It sounds like a job with real tangible impact. And speaking of impact, the guide mentions that the demand for this role is exploding right now. Why is that?
It's pretty simple.
Hmm.
Our cities are bursting at the seams, and the old ways of getting around just aren't cutting it anymore. We've got more people than ever relying on outdated infrastructure. So naturally, the need for innovative, sustainable solutions is more urgent than ever.
It's like they're the superheroes of urban planning, swerving in to save the day from gridlock and commutes from hell.
Well, maybe not superheroes,
Okay.
but they're certainly playing a crucial role in shaping the future of our cities.
Speaking of shaping the future, the guide talks about the high job satisfaction in this field. What's driving that? Is it the problem-solving aspect, the chance to really make a difference?
It's definitely a combination of factors. The profiles highlighted in the guide emphasize a strong sense of purpose among these professionals. They're driven by a desire to make a tangible impact on their communities, to create more livable, sustainable cities. It's not just about managing traffic flow, it's about improving people's lives.
Yeah, that's something I think a lot of people can relate to, especially if you've ever been stuck in traffic and thought there's got to be a better way. But the guide also mentions long hours and potentially high stress.
That's true. It's a fast-paced field with constantly evolving challenges.
Mm.
But for many mobility service managers, the opportunity to shake the future of urban mobility is well worth the demands. They're passionate about what they do, and that passion fuels them through the long hours and unexpected roadblocks.
So you're saying it takes a certain kind of person to thrive in this role, someone who's not just looking for a 9 to 5, but who's really ready to roll up their sleeves and dive into complex challenges.
Absolutely. It requires a combination of strategic thinking, creativity, and a genuine passion for making a difference.
What about specializations within the field? The guide seems a little vague on that.
Well, that's because the field is still relatively new. Unlike more established fields with rigid career paths, this one seems to embrace adaptability and a willingness to wear many hats.
That's interesting. So there's a lot of room to forge your own path, to become the expert in a specific niche within the broader field.
Exactly. Let's say you're really passionate about autonomous vehicles. You could become the go-to person for integrating self-driving cars and buses into a city's existing transportation network.
Or you could specialize in something like smart parking solutions, which, by the way, the guide really dives into.
It's amazing how much technology is changing even that aspect of transportation. We're talking about systems that use AI and real-time data to not only tell you where to find parking, but predict which spots will be open based on the time of day, events happening nearby, all sorts of factors.
Talk about taking the stress out of finding a parking spot. So for someone listening who's thinking, okay, this sounds amazing, sign me up, Where do they even start?
Well, the good news is you don't need to be a city planner with years of experience to get your foot in the door. The guide actually recommends internships as a great way to gain practical experience.
Makes sense. Get in there, learn the ropes, and show them what you're made of. They even mentioned volunteering, right?
That's right. Volunteering for organizations involved in urban planning, transportation, advocacy, even something like a community bike sharing program, shows a genuine passion and commitment to improving cities, which can be a huge asset in this field.
It's a way to stand out from the crowd and demonstrate that you're not just clocking in, you're invested in the bigger picture. So let's say you've got some experience under your belt, you're ready to climb that career ladder. The guide mentions several job titles: coordinator, specialist, manager. What can you tell us about those different levels?
As you progress through those roles, your responsibilities naturally increase. At the coordinator level, you might be assisting with project management, data collection, things like that. Specialists often focus on a particular area, like parking or public transit, conducting research, developing strategies.
And then you move up to the big leagues, the manager role.
Exactly. At that level, you're overseeing projects, leading teams, making key decisions about a city's mobility ecosystem. What's interesting is the guide highlights the importance of continuous learning throughout your career. Even at the manager level, many professionals are pursuing advanced degrees, certifications, always staying ahead of the curve.
So it's not just about climbing the ladder, it's about constantly expanding your knowledge base, staying up to date with the latest trends. Speaking of staying up to date, I loved the guides section on interview prep. One question that stood out to me was, how do you stay current on trends in the mobility industry?
That's a great one. It's a chance to show you're truly passionate and engaged in the field. It's not just about listing off of a few industry journals.
Right, it's about showing them you're genuinely curious and invested in the future of mobility. What are some ways someone could really knock that question out of the park?
Well, you could talk about a recent development in the field that you found particularly exciting, maybe a new technology or a city that's implementing innovative solutions. Maybe you follow a thought leader whose work you admire, or even a podcast like this one. The key is to be specific, to show you're not just passively consuming information, but actively thinking about these issues.
I love that. It's like showing them you're not just along for the ride, you're eager to grab the wheel and steer us toward a more mobile future.
Exactly.
Now, the guide also mentioned that these roles often involve working with cutting-edge technology like AI and machine learning. Can you give us some concrete examples of how that plays out in a mobility services manager's day-to-day work?
Absolutely. Let's say you're working on optimizing traffic flow in a busy downtown area. AI-powered systems can analyze real-time traffic patterns, pedestrian movement, even weather conditions to predict congestion points and automatically adjust traffic signals to keep things moving smoothly.
So it's like having a virtual traffic conductor who can see the whole orchestra at once and make sure everyone's in sync.
That's a great way to put it. And it's not just about reacting to problems as they arise. AI can be used to anticipate potential issues before they even happen.
That's incredible. It seems like the possibilities are almost endless with this technology. But with all this talk of high-tech solutions, it's easy to forget about the human element. The guide also emphasizes the importance of community engagement in this role. Why is that so crucial?
It's easy to get caught up in the data and the technology, but at the end of the day, mobility service managers are designing systems for real people.
Right, it's not just about moving cars or buses, it's about improving the lives of the people who use those systems.
That's why community engagement is so essential. It's about listening to the needs and concerns of residents, understanding their transportation habits, and incorporating their feedback into the planning process.
So it's about striking a balance between those high-tech solutions and that grounded, human-centered approach.
Exactly.
The guide also mentioned something called micromobility. Can you shed some light on what that means and how it fits into this whole picture?
Micromobility refers to those smaller, often shared transportation options that are popping up in cities everywhere, like e-scooters, bike sharing programs,
Yeah.
even those electric skateboards you see zipping around.
Right. I've definitely noticed those becoming more and more popular, especially in densely populated areas.
Exactly. And mobility service managers are tasked with integrating these new modes of transportation into the existing system, figuring out how they can work seamlessly with public transit, ride-sharing services, and pedestrian walkways.
It's like solving a giant, constantly evolving puzzle with all these different pieces that need to fit together just right.
That's a great analogy. And like any good puzzle, it requires creativity, strategic thinking, and a willingness to adapt to new challenges.
Yeah, and speaking of challenges,
Right.
we've talked a lot about the exciting aspects of this career, but the Role-Catcher Guide doesn't shy away from the realities either.
Yeah, what are some of the tougher parts of being a mobility services manager?
Well, as we've touched on, it's a fast-paced field with constantly evolving technology, shifting public needs. That means long hours, tight deadlines, and the pressure to adapt quickly to new challenges are all part of the job.
Right, so it's not for the faint of heart, but I imagine the problem-solving aspect is also part of what makes it so rewarding.
Absolutely. These are people who thrive on finding creative solutions to complex problems. They're constantly thinking about how to make things better, how to create a more efficient, sustainable transportation ecosystem.
The guide also mentions the importance of communication skills in this role. Why is that so crucial for a mobility services manager? Well, think about it. They're working with a huge range of stakeholders.
Hmm.
City officials, engineers, tech developers, public transportation providers, and of course, the general public.
Right, so they need to be able to speak everyone's language, bridge those communication gaps.
Exactly. They need to be able to explain complex technical concepts in a way that's easy to understand, build consensus among groups with different priorities, and effectively communicate their vision for a more mobile future.
Yeah, it's almost like they're diplomats in a way, negotiating between all these different parties to find common ground.
That's a great way to put it. They're negotiators, communicators, and visionaries all rolled into one.
Now, before we wrap up, I have to ask about one more thing from the guide that really caught my eye. RoleCatcher's AI-powered interview practice tool. That sounds like a game changer for anyone prepping for a job interview, not just in the mobility sector.
Oh, it's an amazing resource. Imagine being able to practice your answers to common interview questions, get feedback on your delivery and content from an AI coach, even tailor your resume and cover letter to specific job descriptions, all within one platform.
That's incredible. It's like having a personal career coach right in your pocket.
Exactly. And the best part is, it's designed to help you feel more confident and prepared for that all-important interview.
That peace of mind is invaluable. Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today, but as always, we want to leave our listeners with something to ponder.
Here's a thought. When we think about the future of our cities, it's easy to get caught up in those futuristic images of flying cars and self-driving pods. But the real transformation is happening right now, on the ground, thanks to the work of mobility service managers.
It's like they're shaping the very fabric of our cities, one bike lane, one rideshare app, one smart parking solution at a time.
Yeah. Exactly. And the decisions they make today will have a ripple effect for generations to come. So as you go about your day, take a moment to appreciate the invisible forces that keep our cities moving. And ask yourself, what role will you play in shaping the future of urban mobility?
That's a question worth pondering. Thanks for diving deep with us today. We'll catch you in the next episode.